Welcome back to our channel where stories come alive and emotions take you on a journey you'll never forget. If you're new here, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next inspiring story. Today's tale will tug at your heartstrings, keep you at the edge of your seat, and make you see kindness in a whole new light. Let's dive right in. Daniel was a single father in his late 30s, living in a small, cozy home on the edge of town. Life had not been kind to him, but he had learned to make the best of what he had. He had a 6-year-old daughter named Lily, a bright little girl with curly brown hair and eyes full of wonder. She was his whole world. Daniel worked long hours as a mechanic at a local auto shop, but no matter how tired he was, he always came home with a smile for his daughter. Money was tight, as it often was for a single parent. The bills were piling up, and even though Daniel did everything he could to provide for Lily, some days he barely made ends meet. One evening, after Lily was tucked into bed, Daniel sat at the kitchen table, staring at the stack of overdue notices. He knew he had to come up with a solution soon or risk losing their home. That's when he saw an ad online about renting out a spare room. He had an extra bedroom, small but comfortable, and maybe, just maybe, that little bit of extra income could help. The next day, he cleaned out the room and took a few pictures. He listed it online for a modest rent. He wasn't looking to make a fortune, just enough to ease some of the financial burden. Days passed, and he received a few inquiries, but none seemed serious until one message stood out. It was from a young woman named Emma. She said she was a college student looking for a quiet and safe place to stay. She was polite, articulate, and said she could move in immediately if the room was still available. They agreed to meet that evening. When Emma arrived, Daniel was taken aback. She was tall, elegant, and carried herself with a poise he wasn't used to seeing. Her clothes were simple, but there was something about her that radiated confidence and warmth. She had striking blue eyes that sparkled when she smiled. Lily peeked out from behind her father's leg, curious about the new visitor. Emma knelt down and introduced herself to Lily in the sweetest voice. Within minutes, Lily was giggling, already comfortable with her. Daniel gave Emma a tour of the house, and she seemed genuinely pleased with the room. She asked if she could move in right away, and Daniel agreed. That evening, Emma arrived with just 2 suitcases. No fancy furniture, no moving truck, just her and her belongings. She handed Daniel the first month's rent in cash and thanked him for giving her a place to stay. Over the next few weeks, Emma became part of the household. She was quiet, respectful, and always offered to help around the house. Lily adored her and followed her everywhere, asking questions about college life, books, and everything in between. Emma never seemed to mind. In fact, she enjoyed spending time with the little girl. Daniel noticed how Emma would often cook meals for them when he came home late from work, and sometimes he'd find her reading bedtime stories to Lily. It warmed his heart to see his daughter so happy. Still, there was something mysterious about Emma. She never talked much about her family or her past. Daniel assumed she was just an independent college student trying to make her way in the world, much like he had done years ago. He respected her privacy and didn't pry. One rainy evening, after closing the shop late, Daniel came home soaked and exhausted. He opened the door to find the warm smell of homemade chicken soup filling the air. Emma was in the kitchen, stirring a pot, while Lily sat at the table coloring. When Emma saw him, she quickly handed him a towel. "You look like you've had a long day," she said gently. Daniel smiled, touched by her thoughtfulness. They sat down to eat together, and for the first time in a long while, Daniel felt like they were a real family. As the weeks turned into months, Daniel and Emma grew closer. He admired her intelligence and kindness, and she seemed to genuinely care for both him and Lily. There were moments when their eyes met and lingered a little too long, moments that made Daniel's heart beat faster. But he reminded himself she was just a tenant. He didn't want to complicate things or scare her away. Emma, however, noticed everything. She saw how hard he worked, how much he sacrificed for his daughter, and how humble he was despite his struggles. She admired him more than she could put into words. She wanted to tell him the truth about herself, but she was afraid of how he would react. Emma wasn't just any college student, she was the daughter of one of the wealthiest businessmen in the country. Her father was a billionaire who owned a chain of luxury hotels and properties across the world. Emma had grown up in a world of wealth and privilege, but she had always felt suffocated by it. She wanted to prove to herself that she could live independently, that she could make her way in the world without relying on her father's money. She had enrolled in college under a different last name, hoping no one would recognize her. Renting a room from Daniel was part of that journey. She wanted to live like an ordinary person, to understand the struggles of everyday life. One Saturday morning, Emma offered to take Lily to the park while Daniel worked a half-day shift at the shop. Daniel hesitated at first, protective of his little girl, but he trusted Emma. She had been nothing but kind and responsible since the day she moved in. When Daniel came home later that afternoon, he found Lily laughing and telling him about all the fun she'd had with Emma. They had bought ice cream, played on the swings, and even fed the ducks at the pond. It warmed Daniel's heart to see Lily so happy. As time went on, Emma became like family. She would help Lily with her homework, cook meals, and even surprise Daniel with packed lunches for work. Daniel couldn't remember the last time someone had taken care of him like that. Emma, in turn, found herself falling for Daniel. He was nothing like the shallow, materialistic men she had met in her world. He was humble, hardworking, and had a heart of gold. She loved the way he doted on Lily, how he always put his daughter first. One evening, Emma came home to find Daniel sitting at the kitchen table, head in his hands. Lily was asleep, and the house was quiet except for the sound of rain tapping against the windows. Emma's heart ached seeing him so defeated. She gently asked what was wrong, and Daniel hesitated before confessing. He had fallen behind on the mortgage, and if he couldn't come up with the money soon, they might lose the house. Emma's heart sank. She wanted to tell him the truth, that she could write a check and solve all his problems in an instant. But she didn't want him to see her as just a source of money. She wanted him to trust her for who she was. Instead, she reached out and placed her hand over his. "We'll figure it out," she said softly. "You're not alone anymore." Daniel looked up at her, his eyes full of gratitude. In that moment, something shifted between them. Without thinking, he leaned in, and she didn't pull away. Their lips met in a soft, hesitant kiss that spoke more than words ever could. When they pulled back, both of them were breathless. Over the next few days, Emma started making discreet phone calls. She knew she couldn't just sit back and watch Daniel struggle. She reached out to her family's private lawyer and asked him to anonymously pay off Daniel's mortgage. She made it clear she didn't want her name attached to it. The lawyer was surprised but agreed to handle everything quietly. 2 weeks later, Daniel received a letter in the mail. He opened it with trembling hands, and his eyes widened in shock. The letter stated that his mortgage had been fully paid off. There was no name, no explanation, just a note that said, "Consider this a gift from someone who believes in you." Daniel was speechless. When he told Emma the news, she pretended to be surprised but couldn't hide the tears in her eyes. She hugged him tightly, whispering how happy she was for him. Daniel felt like a weight had been lifted off his shoulders. For the first time in years, he could breathe. Life became brighter. Daniel started smiling more, laughing more. He even began making small renovations to the house. Emma continued to live with them, and their bond only grew stronger. Lily started calling Emma her best friend, and Daniel couldn't deny that he was falling deeply in love with her. One evening, Emma decided it was time to tell him the truth. She asked Daniel to sit down after Lily had gone to bed. She took a deep breath, her hands trembling slightly. "Daniel, there's something I need to tell you," she began. He looked at her curiously, sensing the seriousness in her voice. "I'm not who you think I am," she said softly. "My full name is Emma Sinclair. My father is William Sinclair." Daniel blinked, confused for a moment, until recognition dawned on him. William Sinclair was one of the richest men in the country. His face was often on magazine covers, his name on skyscrapers and luxury hotels. Daniel's heart raced. You're his daughter?" he asked, stunned. Emma nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. I didn't want anyone to know. I wanted to live like a normal person, to understand the world outside of my father's wealth. That's why I rented this room under a different name. I didn't want to be treated differently." Daniel was speechless. Part of him felt betrayed, but another part of him understood. He had seen glimpses of Emma's kindness and humility, and those weren't things money could buy. He realized she wasn't the kind of rich girl who looked down on others. She had chosen to live simply, to share their struggles. Emma reached for his hand. "I also need to tell you something else," she whispered. "I'm the one who paid off your mortgage. I didn't want you and Lily to suffer anymore. Please don't be angry." Daniel stared at her, overwhelmed with emotion. He should have been upset, but all he felt was gratitude and love. He squeezed her hand, his voice thick with emotion. "You saved us, Emma. I don't care who your father is. You're the woman who's been here for us when no one else was." Tears streamed down Emma's face as Daniel pulled her into his arms. From that moment, there were no more secrets between them. Emma's father eventually found out where she was living. At first, he was furious that his daughter was staying in a mechanic's modest home, but when he met Daniel and saw how much he loved Emma and Lily, his anger softened. He saw something in Daniel that money couldn't buy: a man of integrity and heart. Emma's father offered to buy Daniel a bigger house and even offered him a high-paying job managing one of his car service chains, but Daniel politely declined. He didn't want to feel like he owed anyone. All he wanted was to build a life with Emma and raise Lily with love and humility. Emma respected his decision, and that only made her love him more. Months passed, and the bond between Daniel, Emma, and Lily grew stronger. Emma finished her college degree while still living with them, and Daniel's business slowly improved. They became a little family, one that was built not on wealth or status, but on love and trust. One sunny afternoon, Daniel took Emma and Lily to the park. Lily was running around chasing butterflies while Daniel and Emma sat on a bench watching her. Daniel reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Emma gasped as he opened it to reveal a simple, elegant ring. "Emma, I know I'm not a rich man, and I can't give you the life you grew up with. But I can promise you a life full of love, laughter, and honesty. Will you marry me?" Daniel's voice trembled as he spoke. Tears filled Emma's eyes as she nodded. "Yes, 1,000 times yes," she whispered, throwing her arms around him. Lily ran up to them, curious about what was happening, and when Emma showed her the ring, Lily squealed with excitement. "Are we going to be a family now?" she asked. Daniel and Emma both smiled and hugged her tightly. "Yes, sweetheart," Daniel said. "We already are." Their wedding was small and intimate, held in the backyard of their home. Emma's father attended, humbled by his daughter's choice and deeply moved by the love between them. He walked Emma down the aisle with tears in his eyes, grateful she had found happiness. Daniel and Emma exchanged vows under the open sky, surrounded by close friends and neighbors. Lily stood beside them, beaming with joy. It wasn't a lavish affair, but it was perfect in every way. After the ceremony, Emma's father approached Daniel. "I misjudged you," he admitted. "You've given my daughter something money could never buy: a real family." Daniel smiled humbly and shook his hand. "I just love her, sir," he said simply. That was all that mattered. As the years passed, Emma and Daniel built a life together filled with love, laughter, and resilience. Emma continued to stay grounded despite her family's wealth, and Daniel's small auto shop grew into a successful business, thanks in part to Emma's support and encouragement. Lily grew up surrounded by love, learning that family wasn't defined by money but by the people who stood by you through thick and thin. Emma became like a mother to her, and their bond only grew stronger. Whenever people heard their story, they were amazed at how a simple mechanic and a billionaire's daughter found each other and built a life together. But to Daniel and Emma, it wasn't about status or wealth. It was about the quiet moments, the laughter, the hugs, and the love that filled their home. Daniel often thought back to the day he decided to rent out that spare room. He never imagined that decision would change his life forever. He had been searching for a way to keep his home, but instead, He found something far more valuable: a soulmate, a family, and a love story that would last a lifetime. So, the next time life feels heavy, and you feel like you're stuck, remember this story. Sometimes blessings come in the most unexpected ways, and sometimes, love walks through your door when you least expect it. Thank you for watching this heartwarming story. If it touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring stories like this. Until next time, keep believing in kindness, love, and the power of unexpected miracles.